Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media and Sponsorships for HAR. June is National Homeownership Month, and this month we will be highlighting various ways to better assist your buyer clients, starting today with real estate instructor, accredited buyer representative, and just real estate extraordinaire, Tina Wilcher. Welcome to the program, Tina.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. I know that in one of your many roles that you have with our associations, you're actually traveling in NAR this week, but we're glad that you could carve out some time to join us and kick off National Homeownership Month. And we're going to be talking a lot about how to help your buyers win in today's market. And I know you've got some great tips for our members today.
I hope so. I hope so.
Well, before we get into it, tell us a little bit about your journey in real estate. What led you to becoming an instructor?
Very fun journey that I've had becoming an instructor. I never planned to be an instructor, Christina. You know Rita, who is very forceful in some ways. And I, in 2014, was a full-time agent at that time and wanted to get into the TRLP program. And I became a TRLP, which is Texas Realtors Leadership Program. I highly recommend that to anybody who wants to, excel in their career. And Rita, when I was in that program, asked me to audit some classes, kind of told me to audit some classes. And I was a little rebellious in the beginning. I didn't really want to do it. I saw my career as a salesperson because that's what I had been. And after a little bit more pushing from Rita, I did audit some classes. I began to teach for HAR, loved it, and thought, what else can I do other than teach matrix and zip forms? And I learned more about designations and how important they were to the role that we play with our clients. Got more designations. I have about 12 of them. And I started teaching those designation classes. And then I started teaching for Texas Realtors. And then I started teaching for NAR and a little bit of everybody. So it really became a passion and not just a job for me.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know there's a few classes that you're going to mention later on that you recommend, but let's just start kind of with the groundwork. Why is strong buyer representation more important than ever in today's market?
Christina, there are so many options that a buyer has, right? Studies have shown that buyers began to look for properties 18 months before they even contact a realtor. So, in that 18 months, what are they doing? They're looking at properties, they're seeing which houses are available. So, they're very well informed when it comes to the properties that are on the market, but they're not actually informed on how the process works. So, with all the things that have changed in our environment, with our economy, with just the lawsuits against NAR, those things have really affected our business and how buyers get things done. So knowing what's going on in your market, what's moving the market when it's being still, reading on the publications, knowing what's happening in your hyper local markets as well is so very vital to our buyers because that saves them time, it saves them money, and it saves them a lot of frustration as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think every realtor wants to do the best they can for their clients, but they're bound to make mistakes, right? So what are some common mistakes that agents make when working with buyers in particular, and how can they avoid them?
I would say the biggest mistake that a lot of agents make is not doing a consultation, right? Just going into, I'm going to just show you some houses because what does the buyer want to do? They want to shop first. And so we're like, yeah, if I get them to shop in, then maybe they'll buy. Except that when you do that backwards, it leads to more problems. So the best thing that an agent can do is always have a full blown consultation with whoever they're going to work with prior to showing any properties, letting them know what the steps are that you're going to be taking, kind of walk them through how this is going to work. What should you expect? What are the obligations that you have? What are the obligations that I have? Let's really have an understanding of moving forward and what that looks like, right? And the second thing I think that agents sometimes do is we get worried about our money. So we want to make sure we're going to make some money. So we skip some things and we overlook some things, all in the name of, well, I'm going to get paid. So I think that one mistake that agents make is counting the money before it comes and really just overlooking some things that may be needed in the transaction to make sure that you get to closing.
That's a really good point. Thank you. Thank you for that, Tina. Well, I see some people tuning in this morning saying good morning. They're excited to hear from you. Cindy Heyman said,
Awesome.
love that girl, Tina.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you.
If anyone tuned in has questions for Tina, please type those in and we will take a look at those in just a little bit. Now, value. We've talked about stating your value and the importance of stating your value for years now. How can realtors better communicate their value to buyers, especially first time home buyers? Because you tend to find that they may try to go without a realtor, or you even see blog posts and YouTube videos saying, like, do I really need to work with a realtor? So how can realtors better state their value to buyers, and in particular, first time buyers?
Okay. They're really going to have to stand on what they know, Christina. The value comes in not just being able to open a door. That's the least of the value that we have. The value is, what do you know? What knowledge, what information can you share with these buyers to help get them to closing? What can you do to save them money? How can you help guide them through the process so that they don't make costly mistakes? And keeping the whole thing together, being able to talk to the lender, being able to talk to the title company, because if you're a buyer's agent, you're going to be a mediator of sort between 10, 12 different people in this process. So your value comes with being able to communicate, knowing the information, being able to share that information reasonably. Also, time management is very, very important in having value, because sometimes we get so many things on our plate that things get left off. So making sure that you have the time to service your clients, set realistic expectations. I think that that's a big one too when it comes to value. What can you do? What do you know? What services can you provide? What can you not do? Making sure that your client is aware of these things so that you don't, hey, get into some trouble later on down the road because there was too much that you had going on at the time. So showing your value means taking classes, being educated. I think that one thing that agents can do a better job at is being more involved, because when you're involved, you know what's going on. I think Mario Arriaga says it best, and that is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And you'll get eaten up, right? Because somebody else is going to come along and tell your client something, and you're not going to know anything about it. And it's like, where did this come from all of a sudden? How do I not know about it? So you really have to be involved so that you can truly show your value. I'm in DC now, and there's lots of us from Houston who are here now, and we're here to learn. We're here to network. We're here to find out what's really going on and really to set the stage for what we want home ownership and private property rights to look like. So that involvement brings value, and you don't have to worry about, disputing compensation. That's something that agents have a big problem with. Hey, I want to make sure I get paid. But when you show value, you're going to get paid. You're going to get more referrals. You're going to get more people who want to do business with you. So making sure that people know what the value is. Why are they choosing you? Why should they choose you over someone else? What makes you the better candidate for this job? So showing that value is going to be so important to make sure that we not only get paid, but that we get them through the process so that we get residual sales from this, right? We get more business from their friends, their family members.
And I think so many realtors, I'm sure some that are tuned in can relate to this. They feel like, oh my gosh, I do so much for my client, and they just don't realize what I'm doing for them. So how, is it in that buyer consultation that you mentioned that they should express that value? Is it on social media? Is it an email newsletter? How do they show up? Is it all of those places?
It's all of those, Christina. You have to show up in every arena where your clients are. And if they're on social media, then you need to be showing value on social media. If you have a friend group, your sphere of influence, you need to be showing value to them. What information are you sharing on a regular and consistent basis that informs people? And also, when they're ready to take action because they have a triggering need or a triggering event, what have you done to help prepare them for that? So staying abreast of hey, what's going on in the news? What's going on over here in Sugarland? What's happening in the Woodlands? What are the new laws that are affecting our government? Those are the kind of things that we have to not only know for ourselves, but we have to share that information. We got to share it on social media. We got to share it in newsletters. We got to share it really in general conversations that we have with people instead of saying, "Did you see that big mansion over in River Oaks?" Yeah, but did you hear about the mud issues in Missouri City? Like, that's going to affect you more. So we have to bring value by knowing what's going on and communicating that with them throughout the process.
That's a really good point. The in-person conversation, right? Because I think most people, the first question they get asked is, "How's the market?" Right? And you can say, "Yeah, it's great," or "It's a good time to buy," "It's a good time to sell," whatever the case is. But actually having some other things to discuss, like you said, a mud issue or whatever,
Mhm.
that's really great. So yeah, thank you, Tina, for that.
You're
Just
welcome.
taking a look. What was
I
that?
would recommend that agents find three topics that they become the expert on when it comes to real estate. For me, that's MUDs, that's HOAs, and I love floods. I know we can't talk a lot about is it in a flood district or not, but really, when I saw Bill Baldwin talking about the flood maps changing, my interest is piqued on those things because what's happening, flooding all over the United States, especially in Texas, MUDs. I serve in Missouri City, Sugarland area. Missouri City has 32 MUDs. Almost everybody is affected by it. So my recommendation is that agents find at least three topics that they become the expert on. So when it's time to start a conversation, Christina, you're not saying, "Oh, the market is good. It's great. It's a great time to buy." Because I'm the kind of person who says, "But why? Why should I? What makes it so good?" And so if you say, "Hey, the market is going great, but there are some things going on with these MUDs, and we got to really take a look at how they're, going to TCEQ, approving MUDs. We got to look at these processes." It makes people think a little deeper up and just not above ground and surface level. So really, if agents would have at least three topics that they can just be, "Hey, I'm the expert on it. You want to know about it? Ask me about it." Bill Baldwin, I go back to him, historic districts, the historical homes. He's amazing at knowing that information. Not everybody does, but his clients come to him because, again, he knows the information and they know that they're going to get the most well informed information that they can find.
Love that. I bet everybody here probably has at least three things that are paying attention to, but just having the actual thought in your mind. These are the three things that I'm going to focus on. I think that's great. Just a comment here I wanted to mention from Diane Moore. She said, "Agreed. Consistency is super important in demonstrating value, but even more important would be to keep the promises that you make during your consultation."
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. They remember it, right? And at the end, we should be getting client experience ratings and reviews to let everybody else know how great of a job we did. So we want to make sure that throughout the process, we are constantly checking that to make sure that we're providing what they need, not just what you think they need, but you want to ask questions. Is this helpful to you? Is there any other resources that I can provide? Can I get you some more information about it? Or just, connecting them with certain business professionals who can give them that additional information.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, there's so many agents in the Houston area. What skills or strategies do you think separates a great buyer's rep, a great buyer's agent from the rest?
Knowing your stuff, right? Knowing it and feeling comfortable that you know it. Because when you feel comfortable that you know it, it's like no matter what you say, I still know what I'm talking about. And I've researched, I've looked everything up, I've done the back end of it to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. So, really staying abreast of what's going on in your market. And another skill that people need to have, negotiation. I think that negotiating is going to be one of the biggest things that we do throughout any sales process, right? And you're not just negotiating that contract, Christina, they're negotiating with their client on what days to do showings. You're negotiating on if you should ask for repairs or money back, you're asking for extensions on option periods. There's so much negotiations. So they're really going to have to know how to negotiate with everybody in the process. How do you negotiate with the title company when your client's 10,000 miles away and needs a mobile notary? right? Who's going to pay $250 for that? So do you want to pass that on to your client? Do you want to see if that's something that the title company maybe has some concessions they can make? The negotiations are going to be very, very important. Another skill, communication. We have to be better at communicating when it comes to real estate professionals. And I think sometimes if you don't know it or you get too busy, you don't always return calls or answer phones. So make sure that you're a good communicator in this process and not talking over people's head. We say a lot of acronyms, right? Because I've said MUDs 5 times. People who don't know what a MUD, it's a municipal utility district. So really keeping things on their level so that they have an understanding and asking a lot of questions. I learned moving to Texas to be a nosy Texan because Texas people will ask anything about anything that they have no business knowing, Christina. And so I become a nosy Texan with my clients because I need all these questions answered so I can better direct you and guide you in this process to make it more efficient and effective for you. So ask
Yeah.
a lot of questions.
Thank you so much. That's very, very good. And you're right, the acronyms. A buyer has no idea what an IABS is, right?
No.
They're like, I think I've heard of that. My doctor mentioned that one time, right?
Yeah,
um,
when my client said, "You're telling me you're going to BS me?" I was like, "No, no,
no, no, no,
no. This
no.
is information about broker services."
You mentioned negotiation, and Jesse asked, are there any negotiation classes available for agents?
Oh, most definitely. One of the best negotiation classes is the RENE. It's the Real Estate Negotiation Expert. And that is an NAR conferred designation, which means it's nationally recognized. That designation is going to really, really help you when it comes to being able to negotiate. It's 2 days. HAR offers it. It is 16 hours. You can use that for your CE credit as well. And in combination with the RENE, I'm also going to recommend that they take the ABR, which is accredited buyer rep, and they take the PSA, which is the pricing strategy advisor. And Christina, even though we're talking about buyers, I'm going to take a step farther and ask them to also take SRS, which is seller representation specialist. Because when you take SRS, you know how to work with sellers. You take ABR, you know how to work with buyers. And RENE is negotiating buyers, sellers, and everybody else. And then you have PSA, pricing strategy advisor, which teaches you how to price properties correctly. So with those four very in-depth designations and certifications, you're going to be a well-rounded agent who knows how to work with buyers, sellers, and other people in the process to make sure that it runs effectively. Because again, you're going to be the middle person that they all talk to.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Tina. And we are sharing links in the comments for people that are interested in signing up for any of those classes that Tina mentioned. So confidence, we know confidence is key. It's so important. How can realtors help buyers feel more confident and prepared throughout the home buying journey?
Again, that consultation is the biggest step in making sure that they have an understanding. Because in the consultation, you're going to go over the 10 steps that it takes to purchase a home. And step 5, Christina, of that is shopping. We know that most people want to go shopping, but there's so much more that happens before that shopping point. So if you can educate them, get them with a lender, have them to complete a buyer questionnaire so that you know what their needs are. And then by the time you get to step 5 to show, your showings are going to be more effective because you're no longer showing 20 homes that don't meet their needs. You're showing 2 to 5 homes and you're in contract. So really being able to guide them from the beginning of the process. I think that when you do a consultation or you kind of go back around after you've done the showings already, then it creates a lot of confusion because they're like, well, I already saw a house. I'm ready to buy. Let's put the money in. But there's so many other things that go in with that. So really that consultation cannot be skipped. And I've had consultations, Christina, that took an hour. I've had consultations that took 4 hours, but they were all very effective in making sure that we had an understanding of what your obligations were to me, what my obligations were to you, what I can do, what I can't do, what I can advise on. We go ahead and provide resources during that consultation, and we give them assignments because those assignments are saying, hey, you got some skin in the game. I got some things I need you to do. It's not just going to be me looking for you properties and getting you in there. I need you to talk to a lender. I need you to complete this buyer questionnaire. I need you to roll around some of these areas of town that you want to live in to make sure that that's going to be a comfortable place for you. So it's
Mhm.
not just about what the agent is going to do, it's also getting that client involved and heavily involved in the process so that everybody is working towards the common goal.
Very good. You said two to five homes to contract, right? Because you're finding homes that you know are actually going to suit their needs. There was a great comment from Teresa Hill who said, communication is essential. You need to not only ask questions, but know when to listen as well. And you can't get to those two to five homes if you're not listening, right?
Yes, for real. I mean, sometimes we're like, let's go show, because they'll be in
Mm-hmm.
contract. And it's like you showed them a bunch of stuff and none of it met their needs. A
Mm-hmm.
quick example, I had a friend who lives in Wisconsin and I referred her to one of my friends there. And she looked at multiple homes and I'm like, why haven't you guys found a home yet? You know, she's a single woman. It doesn't take a lot. And I've shown her so many homes and I just can't find her anything. So I called my friend and I said, what is your problem? Why can't you find a home? She said she shows me nice homes, but I have 6 grandkids and I host all their birthday parties. And the yards just aren't big enough for the big bouncy homes that they like for me to blow up for the party. So I can't find a yard that will fit this huge bouncy. So I haven't been able to say yes. And I called the agent back and I said, the yard is holding you back. She said she never mentioned it. I said, and you never asked. So she didn't think to tell us about her grandkids' bouncy home. And shortly thereafter, Christina, they found the perfect yard, right? And they were able to move into contract. So knowing what your client's needs are and listening to that and really reiterating it, as Teresa mentioned, is this what I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing that you're saying that you need? If it's not your needs, then we shouldn't see it, right? If I use the example in my class, someone tells me they have 3 huge dogs and I need a fenced in backyard, and they send me a property that has no fence in the yard. I'm like, well, you're going to get rid of the dogs? You're going to let them sleep in your bed? How are we going to run around and have fun at? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? Where there's no fence around the yard. So there's no need to see this property. It doesn't meet your needs. Oh, I didn't even pay attention to that. I thought the kitchen was lovely. So really
Mm-hmm.
focus on what it is that they need and reiterating those needs throughout the process.
Excellent, excellent. Cindy Heyman just made a comment. Everything you're speaking about is being their advisor, not just their realtor.
Yes.
So excellent. So you've given so much great advice, and we've have so many comments coming in telling you this is wonderful. Thank you so much. In a competitive or shifting market, what advice do you give to realtors that are trying to help buyers stand out?
They're going to have to market for their buyers. I know that we market a lot for sellers, but we really need to market for our buyers. You never know who has a property that meets their needs. So I like to go on social media, and we also have in our brokerage, we have some groups where we can tell each other what we're looking for, needs that we have for our clients. And that has been really effective instead of just saying, let's look at what's on the market. We've even solicited properties that were not on the market, Christina, if they met the client's needs. And that was figuring out what it is and where they want to be. And we have even knocked on doors and said, hey, I have somebody who's interested in buying your house, and it works. So marketing for those buyers to say,
Mm-hmm.
people in your office, your colleagues, what do you have available? You all know Zelda Kane. She and I were talking. A friend of mine in Dallas told me that Zelda has 3 new listings. And I was like, oh, where are they? And she told me about them. And we got to talking, and they really meet two of my clients' needs that really aren't in the search process, but they can be because I have something now that meets their needs. So marketing for your buyers is really going to be important.
Excellent. Well, as we celebrate National Homeownership Month, what message would you share with realtors about making a lasting impact on their clients' homeownership journey?
I'm going to say know your stuff, right? Be a resource for them. When you are a resource, you will continue to get their business, their family's business, and everybody that they know. So the more that you know, the more you're going to share. I get a lot of people asking me questions, Christina, that I may not do business with, but they ask a lot of questions because they feel I know the information. I share that with them. I go on about my way. Next thing you know, I'm getting a call from somebody that says, "My friend said to call you because you know about MUDs and I'm moving from Wisconsin. I never heard of it. Can you tell me more about it? How do I use my Section 8 voucher to purchase a home? Can you tell me more about it?" I'll also say one thing I want to add: blog. I want more people to blog. And I know that's something that you push, Christina, and
Mhm.
blogging does make a difference. People actually read the blogs and include your contact information because they will call you, they will reach out to you, they will see you as a subject matter expert. So do
Mhm.
your due diligence to put your name out there to make sure that people know the information. As realtors, we have so much information that we just don't share because we know it already, right? So
Mhm.
start finding things that you can share that are relevant to what's happening with the people that you serve.
Very good. So you've given so much great advice and different things that they can be doing, different strategies when working with buyers, courses they can take. What's one thing that they can do this week, right now, instant impact? What can they do this week to better serve their buyers?
They can know what's going on in the news, know what's going on in the hyper local markets, not just what's going on in the US government, right? Not just what's going on over Houston or over Fort Bend. They need to know that hyper local market. That hyper local market is the community where your clients are moving into. What's going on with the HOA in that area? What is going on with flooding, even if you can't advise on it, right? What's happening in that community? Are there any zoning changes? Are there any ordinances that would affect your clients? You need to know what's happening in the hyper local markets that you serve, because even though there's a lot going on in the economy, in the world, what matters most is what happens on their block, what happens on their street, in the communities that they live in. Know about those schools. When I say know about the schools, you don't got to know the ratings, they'll figure that out. But know if they're feeding the third graders into another school because they're overcrowded, right? Those are the kind of things that we got to be aware of so that we can mention it. If there's EMFs, there's a lot of EMFs in this area, which are electromagnetic fields. Know that, because if you have someone who has medical conditions, that's going to affect them. So you got to know the areas that you serve and be involved in those areas. Go to city council meetings, go to networking functions. Fort Bend networking is something that I'm so excited about because I hear a lot about what's happening in Fort Bend County. HAR has area networkings all over the city, right? And we have the principals, the superintendents, the mayors, the city council members, the city planners. They all come in and have conversations about what's going on. Those are places that we need to be sitting at the table. So being involved in your like hyper local communities that you serve is going to make the biggest difference in the value that you bring, because you're going to be able to speak about some things that a person who lives across town or who's not involved will not have any clue about. So really get involved in that hyper local market. Know what it is that your clients are needing. Also, where are they? What are they hearing on social media? Start having those conversations. Hey, you got any rumors I can dispel today, right? Any myths I can help you have an understanding about? Those are the kind of things that are going to get them to the end result of making that purchase and being happy about it, right?
Very good. Well, you've piqued people's interest on blogging. There's a lot of chatter about blogging and how do I learn how to blog. We shared some courses there, how to enhance your HAR website. They talk about blogging there. Of course, it is a platinum tool for people who would like to blog. Any other classes? You've mentioned a few. You mentioned PSA, real estate negotiation expert, ABR, SRS. Any other acronyms or any other classes that you want to mention?
Well, the classes that I'm going to tell them to take is the social media classes that you teach, right? I'm going to tell them to become very familiar with videos, because videos are driving our business. So agents need to get over that fear, primarily the women. We don't like our hair today. We don't like our nails. I mean, I came all the way to
Yeah.
DC and forgot my brush and my comb, even though I brought curlers, right? But we got to make sure that we have all the tools that we need to service our clients. And those tools are going to be the information, the resource, the involvement. They need to take the platinum class, right? And lead generation. They need to take the tools class. I highly promote that tools class because there's so many tools that we have that we're not using. And
Hmm.
if you're paying for this, you mentioned the platinum subscription, $137 annually for $5,000 worth of tools. A lot of brokers in our association don't even have to purchase ancillary tools because we have them all in our association. I'm also a member of the Wisconsin Association. We don't have a third of the tools. We have to purchase them ourselves. So really dive into the tools class and have an understanding of what tools are available and utilize those tools. So aside from those three topics, I'm going to challenge every agent to go into the tools platform and take a look at them and find three new tools that they want to discover and start using with their clients and implement that into their business. So if you can implement some new tools or technology that's already readily available to you into what you're already doing, you're just going to perfect your process. You're just going to make it more efficient. So what I would say that they should start doing today is finding three tools that they can implement that's going to benefit the clients that they serve and start using those and add to it on a regular basis.
Wonderful. Well, Tina, you just gave me the absolute best segue, I think, in the history of this program. You didn't know who we have booked for next week, but we have HAR Technology Marketing Manager Sally Snook, who's going to be talking all about the best tools for buyer representation. So I think you just laid down the exact reasons that everybody needs to tune in next week to hear from Sally.
Awesome. I
Very
didn't
good.
know, but awesome.
Yeah, very good. Well, Tina, thank you so much for, again, your time today, taking your time out from the conference that you're attending. Again, we've shared, people were looking for area networking meetings that you mentioned. We shared those links in the comments. And of course, all of the classes that you mentioned, as well as information about Platinum subscription. Again, this was, I think, so wonderful. Our members are just saying how much they appreciated everything you shared today, Tina.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
And I
so
would
much.
also recommend, as a last little tidbit, is
Mm-hmm.
once you provide this amazing service, use client experience ratings, because ratings
Mm-hmm.
and reviews increase your SEO, and that lets others know, hey, utilize this agent. They did an amazing job for me. So utilize those tools that they have, especially the client experience rating.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Tina, for your time today. And everyone be sure to tune in next week to hear from Sally all about the tools that Tina says you need to know about. Have a
Yes.
great week, everyone. Bye bye.